We are recording.
Are we all here? Good morning, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Town of New Canaan Board of Selectmen meeting Tuesday, December 15th, 8:30 a.m. This is a virtual meeting by Zoom. So first item on our agenda are the minutes of our last meeting on December 1st. Any comments or corrections, Nick or Kathleen?
Not here.
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting, December 1st.
Second here.
Nick seconds. All in favor? Okay, minutes are approved. Since this is a virtual meeting, public comments will be taken by email only, and we will read any comments received in the course of the meeting. The email address to send comments is bosdistribution@newcanaanct.gov. That's bosdistribution@newcanaanct.gov. So I move that we move the pesticides discussion to the end of the agenda so we can run through everything else and let a lot of the staff go. So I move we move item 3 to after the contracts, number 9. There a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. We'll proceed with the agenda as amended. So the first item on the agenda, next on the agenda is the tree warden. Tiger, you handling this?
I will. Good morning. Thank you very much. The tree warden went out for his latest round of bids. This covers 10 locations in town, some in the parks, some on the roads. We had 2 bidders come back. Olmsted Tree was the low bid at $29,295. Olmsted's done nice work for us in the past, and we would like to continue. So we'd like to award the contract to Olmsted Tree for this set of work for $29,295.
Any questions? No questions? I move we approve this request from the tree warden to enter into contract with Olmsted Tree for $29,295 for tree pruning and removal at various locations. I have a second?
Second.
Kathleen second. Further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
We have a series of annual reappointments and some appointments. I guess I'll go through each of these and vote on them, or do you feel comfortable voting on them en bloc, or whatever that word is? What is that word, Nick?
Means everybody all at once.
Do you want to go item by item?
I read them. I think that's fine. I note, thank you for posting the bio on George Bennington. And Tucker and I just had a brief conversation about this as well. And many of these are reappointments. And so I understand that. That's great. Is there just a resource that folks could go to that shows the bios of all of our appointees and the different boards and commissions that,
No.
you know, for the public to look at and so forth?
No.
You know, maybe there's a potential that I think I know when I was on the various boards, we had a paragraph or 2 about everybody.
I think the town council and the board of finance, if you like, you know, when we rebuilt the town website last year, I think if you looked at other town websites, you probably would not find that for all boards and commissions. And we have like 150 or
Right.
So I think for the major boards and commissions,
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I think it's a great idea. I think at least if we can give the opportunity to our hardworking volunteers,
Yeah.
you know, a paragraph just to introduce themselves. If they don't want to do it, that's fine. I don't think it should be compulsory, but I think it's a good idea.
I'm thinking about the burden on the staff to keep it current. I mean, it's really
No. It's up to the individual, I would think, to keep their piece current. So.
So I would move that we approve all the appointments and reappointments on our tablets and as set forth in the agenda. I don't really think I need to read them all, but I want to thank all of them for serving. We have incredible resources in New Canaan with volunteers, and that's what makes New Canaan go. So I would move the appointment and reappointments that are on our tablets and on the agenda.
Let's second that. And likewise, Kevin, thank all of the folks being reappointed and the new appointees, and a special shout out to my friend George Bennington, who you and I work with at the Exchange Club. And if you haven't heard, we've sold out all the trees, the Christmas trees. And I think, thanks to the folks who purchased the trees, I think we've made, $240,000, all of which will go to charities in New. And thanks to everybody for coming out and buying the Christmas trees.
Okay, Kathleen.
Same. I agree. I agree. Thank you all to everybody who serves in commissions, boards, committees, etc. It's a great honor to know most of you, and I look forward to getting to know all of you. Thank you.
So I think I moved it. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Nick seconds. Further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous for all those volunteers and all the boards and commissions listed. So that brings us to action on dissolving a couple of committees that have completed their work. The Fields Building Committee, which did yeoman's work over the last 3 years. I think you were on that committee, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And the Waveney House Renovation Advisory Committee, which 2 years ago was very helpful in focusing our attention on the ADA compliance aspects of Waveney House. And we have the first leg of that project underway. We obviously have more work to do on Waveney House in terms of use and renovations. But if you look at the front lawn of Waveney House, thanks to the Waveney Park Conservancy, it's absolutely astoundingly beautiful now. And with a brand new roof and a lot of other improvements we've done around the grounds, which the Waveney Conservancy is dedicated to do with us. The Waveney House has another 100 years on it, probably 200 years more. So, but that committee completed its duties, so I move that we dissolve the Fields Building Committee and the Waveney House Renovation Advisory Committee.
Second here.
Discussion further? All in favor? Okay. Well, the next item is the salaries for the Registrar of Voters. And actually, I would note that on our agenda, it talks about the term beginning January 7th. Apparently, it's actually January 6th. And different public offices, the salary is set by different bodies. In the case of the registrar, it's set by the Board of Selectmen, and it has to be done before the terms begin. So there hasn't been an adjustment in several years. I don't know who's on here that could help me. Is Cheryl on? Cheryl, you're there.
There hasn't been an adjustment in over 5 years. We did do a salary survey of area towns and did come to the conclusion that they are low compared to other towns, and did find out because of the Constitution, the Board of Selectmen does have to set this salary before they are formally sworn in.
And I would note that the salary survey shows that they're still at the low end.
What is the current salary, Kevin?
Current salary is 22,000. Gary Ann, for example, is 30,000. So we're proposing to bring them up to 26,000. I think in New Canaan, it's sort of regarded as a semi-volunteer position, but they certainly worked hard this past election season, as did the town clerk. But we're not going to recommend. We're not going to. We don't set the salary for the town clerk. The town council does.
Is this a part-time position, Cheryl?
It is considered a part-time position.
Thank you.
Any questions for Cheryl about the research that was done and the request that was made by the registrars?
Thank you for doing it.
I move that we approve the compensation level for John Amarilios and Joan McLaughlin. Actually, although we're doing them as individuals, we're actually setting the salary for the incumbents. So that should they not be the incumbent, well, they are the incumbent for
They're
next
elected.
January 6th. We are setting the salaries for the registrar of voters positions for a term beginning January 6th at $26,000 per year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to tax overpayments on our tablets. I didn't bring my tablet. Any questions about the tax overpayments on the tablets? I would move we approve the tax overpayments on our tablets.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Contracts under $10,000. Any questions about the?
Just on the modular building, just for Tiger, that's going to be part of this report that you'll come up with all of the different components thereof, right? In terms of creating that little modular.
Yeah, there'll be a matrix for you or a spreadsheet showing you where everything is.
Okay, great.
I know Bill is working on that now.
Okay.
No other questions? That brings us back to the pesticide item, which Kathleen, do you want to kick this off since you initiated the discussion?
Sure, happy to. I'm going to assume everything has been read, although I'll just double check that I'm kind of working from the same materials that everybody has hopefully had a chance to read. The first is my memo of September 22nd, pesticide usage and recommendations. I'll tie that into another memo that's dated December 9th from the New Canaan Parks and Recreation Commission. That's been led by Jack Hawkins and Laura Costigan. And that was reviewed by the Parks and Rec last week, I believe. So I'll tie that in. I also am working from I think it's a draft of a memo of our Superintendent of Parks, John Howe, which is dated the 26th of October. And I'll refer to that unless there's an updated one. I also have two documents from Tom Irwin on the studies that they did on both Connor Field and Sachs Middle School Field. And the only thing I don't have, although it is referenced in the Parks and Rec memo, is a Fields Committee report. There's a reference to a comment that was made by the New Canaan Fields Committee, and I don't have a copy of that. I don't know, does that report exist or?
It really wasn't a report on the subject. It was a report on the Tom Irwin advisor's report, and I don't know why the Parks and Rec Commission referred to it, since it really wasn't a report on the subject matter.
Okay.
But
okay. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, so that's fine. Okay, great. Thank you. And everybody had a chance to review those? Nick and Kevin?
oh yeah, yes.
Okay.
I've seen them. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure, great. So assuming then that they've all been read, maybe if we could I'm going to just jump to the recommendations then and tie those into some of the observations and suggestions that have been made by many others. And I want to start off by saying thank you to many people who have shared their perspective and really appreciate it. There's not a a plus or minus, or this side wins versus that side wins. It's all about research and information. And again, I commend those who did take the time and did a lot of work on this. So thank you. So the first observation that I had, and this was news to me in terms of the differences that we have in terms of the application of pesticides to our town athletic fields, not to our school athletic fields, by virtue of the law. We have 12 years now have been operating under state legislation that prevents the use of pesticides on school athletic fields. There was a pesticide usage committee, as you all know, led by Tucker Murphy 12 years ago, and a team of people as a subcommittee then of the town council. So a lot of work was done there, and again, appreciate all the work that was done there. I think the first recommendation was just a simple disclosure recommendation. We do obviously in our websites, et cetera, in our descriptions of our fabulous athletic fields, we do talk about that is our objective is to maintain all the town parks and school grounds, and if athletic field maintenance, leaf pickup, snow removal, et cetera. And then each park is more fully described with reference to the athletic fields and so forth. And my only recommendation here, and it's supported by the Park and Recreation Commission, saying that perhaps just a little bit more in terms of disclosure with respect to the fact that our fields are very well maintained. They're both, by the way, operated under an integrated pest management program. I think there's a little difference in the Park and Rec Commission memo. It suggests that the IPM only applies to the town athletic fields. The fact is, and John can yes, or agree to this, is the IPM program applies to all of our athletic fields. So it's not just exclusively to our town athletic fields. It's a very comprehensive program that our superintendent of parks has been doing for many years, and in fact is addressing all of the tools, as John likes to say, that are available to him to keep our athletic fields, whether they're schools or town, at a high quality. So I just think in terms of understanding that we can just say, spell out the IPM, and that what is used in terms of our parks doesn't have to be long, 1 or 2 sentences, I think, and it's just a disclosure item that I think is important. And again, it seems that the Parks and Rec also support this proposal, and they also offer to work with the Parks Department to accomplish this. Any questions on that recommendation?
I would comment, Kathleen, that since my entire career was full disclosure as a securities lawyer,
and Nick,
I question the value of something on the website versus, and I'd like to ask John and Tiger why we don't put signs on fields when their application is applied, as private property owners do, private pesticide companies do. So that's a question I asked John and Tiger first.
We do.
We actually do. It's required by law to put out any, they're little yellow signs that you'd see on like home lawns too. And we do put them out on the fields before we treat. And they're out there for at least 24 hours after the application. Although
the pesticide spray dries in how many minutes? And so what is the theory behind signs?
The theory behind the signs is that the state needed to come up with something that has to be up for a period of time. Even though our pesticides that we use, once it's dried on the leaf, it's okay for re-entry. You still need to leave the signs up for 24 hours. That's Connecticut state law.
Okay. Nick, you have any?
Yeah, I have to say, I was surprised that that the fields at Saks received a D rating in terms of safety. where, those don't get the one-time 5-minute annual application of pesticide. And that's a concern to me, because, we're talking about concussions, hard surfaces. Now that may be, and John, you can weigh in, simply part of that is just usage compared to Connor, which I think got a B rating. So a couple of things. Number one, I certainly have no problems whatsoever with full disclosure to folks using the fields, and whether it's on our website or whether it's signage with respect to applications that have just been made. But I am concerned that, the deterioration over the years of the school fields, because of the lack of any pesticide applications whatsoever. Again, we're talking about 5 minutes out of the year, 5 minutes. So I'm certainly not advocating for the elimination of the 5-minute annual pesticide application to the non-school fields. But I am concerned about the school fields, and the fields are clearly not as good as they were, 10 years ago.
So we can jump there, Nick, because I think
No. I want to get back to disclosure. So I think.
Okay, sorry.
So I agree. The staff will take up the issue of an appropriate disclosure on the website.
Okay.
Yep.
Nick, you're good with that? Okay, great.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'm about safety, and as someone who's coached sports for years on those fields, and look, John does it, and his team do a fantastic job of doing what they can. But I've seen the fields in better shape, and I think that the lack of a 5-minute annual pesticide application, when nobody's around in the middle of the summer is missing.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't do much about that in terms of the school fields. I mean, we can't put pesticides on them, so that's not an option. But
yeah, understood.
That said, there are other options that we can do to hopefully improve our school athletic fields, and I'll get to that in just a second, because I think the Tom Irwin reports are worth making note of. In fact, let me, if with your permission, if I can just reference those, because I think there's 2 reports that came out, one on Connor, one on Sachs Middle School, and I think the results that came back in terms of their commentary on Connor, and if I compare that to Sachs, there's really only 2 areas that differentiate the 2 fields, and one is on root depth, and the other is on the percentage of desirable cover. Everything else in terms of surface hardness, in terms of the percentage of surface debris, the planarity, I don't even know what that is, but I'm sure someone can tell me, the infiltration rate, and the thatch depth, those are equal. So the 2 areas where we could look to improve, according to Tom Irwin, are on the percentage weed coverage and on the percentage desirable coverage. And it goes on to say that in the report regarding Connor, there's a PQS rating, so their performance quality standards, if you will. And if you look at their report, again on Connor, and as Nick points out, on Connor, they've graded a grade B. There's a score, if you will, in terms of, it goes from A to E. B, total score of 55, and this rated 34. The range for B being high standard is 34. So we're at the bottom of the level to 44. So in terms of 11 criteria, and they're very specific about things that we could do to improve. Some are rated B in terms of different areas. Weed cover in terms of is rated an E. They don't give S at all, but that'd be the lowest one. So really good kind of tool, as John likes to use the word, to identify those areas that we could perhaps improve or at least maintain our high standard grade B. And I might have not gotten the full report here. Tiger, you were kind enough to share this with me, but on Sachs, the PQS field test performance quality standards is not in this particular report. So they give a summary in terms of what is working and what's not working for SACs, but they don't give the level of detail that they provide for Connor. And that's again the PQS report. So if we could kindly ask for them to make sure they fill out the same, give us the same details that they gave us for Connor. That way we have the means by which to sort of say, okay, how do we improve what is currently rated a D, which I believe is referenced here as low standards. It is a standard, but low standard, and maybe see where the score is to see what kind of points can we increase so that we can increase, to Nick's point, increase the quality of all of our fields or maintain the quality of our fields, or on the case of the school athletic fields, how do we improve them? So that would just ask for if they, and Tiger, maybe you have that, but if they haven't supplied that, maybe they can update that report to include the same PQS report. Okay.
Yeah, we'll ask.
Okay, thank you. So let me go then to the reconvening the pesticide usage committee. And this was really referencing back a recommendation that was made 12 years ago by the pesticide usage committee, that once a year, perhaps a committee, a group, one individual, whomever, would continue to evaluate, are there any issues out there? How are the quality of our fields? Is there any new news on pesticide usage from the state level? There was, in fact, in 2015, just 5 years ago, the Department of Environmental Protection did broaden its proposal on pesticide usage on athletic fields, and they included playgrounds and municipal parks. Again, there was not a specific committee that reviewed that, except perhaps the fields committee, but that wasn't reported to any other town body, as far as I know. Good news is that no pesticides are applied to any of the playgrounds, and so nobody needed to review it, and it's been that case ever since. So, but I do think that from time to time, and this is also agreed in terms of the recommendation from Parks and Rec, that perhaps a reporting process should include an additional qualified individual or party, such as a representative from New Canaan Health and Human Services, that can help evaluate health risks and so forth. And so again, that was a recommendation back in September, another one in December, and I open it up for any questions or comments on that point.
Kelly, my view on this is that, first of all, I'm talking to Jay Egan and Steve Banco, the Fields Committee's mandate is to allocate field time. And I was surprised that they don't consider the condition of fields in that allocation process. So that's really why they also didn't write a report. They didn't think that it was their job to have a view on the condition of the fields with respect to pesticides. And on the other hand, with respect to expertise, I'd like to emphasize that John Howe is a certified licensed person in this subject. I don't know who else we would bring in. You know, John's background is managing golf course turf. I mean, he was at the New Canaan Country Club. He was at Waterville in Ireland. I mean, you know, he's got a background, as well as now, is your assistant, you also have licensed people under you. So the whole science of the use of pesticides is a highly technical one that John and Tiger also as a active athletic person and aware of the requirements for field maintenance and turf maintenance. I don't know why I don't know who else we would bring in that would be more knowledgeable and more qualified to work on this subject. The other thing is, to a large extent, I think things largely change now that we have such large amount of turf fields, because the playing fields are now, the desired fields are the turf fields. So the game changed quite a bit from 10 years ago in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. But this is a subject, I admit, I didn't know much about when we first raised it. I don't have any need to become an expert myself, because we have experts that work for us, and I would defer and rely upon John's expertise and Tiger's expertise to make these judgments. And I just don't know, I don't know who else we bring in as another expert working with them that would change that equation. I mean, obviously Jay Egan and Steve Banko are also knowledgeable in this area. So I don't know that we want to designate the Fields Committee per se, but I do think, I mean, I think perhaps we just keep it with the Board of Selectmen to,
Yeah.
but that's my view. Nick, I would also comment, there's also health issues with turf fields in terms of heat and, so there are always health issues everywhere.
Exactly.
But I think that the reason people are required to get certified and licensed in this field is because you got to know the field, you got to be an expert, and John's reading all the literature, understands all the experts that advise on the subject to the state, et cetera. So the other subject I really think we need to focus more on is exactly which fields are school covered fields. Yep. And which fields are not school covered fields, because the state's blanket rule about not using pesticides on school fields gets a little blurry in a town like Buchanan, where a lot of our fields are really Waveney Park fields and not school fields, and we've made some rather sloppy decisions about which fields are covered where. So I would keep it in John and Tiger as our experts, and periodically come back to the subject ourselves. So that's my thought. Nick.
And look, I defer to John and to Tiger and to Steve and to Jay. I agree, Kevin. These folks are experts, both based upon training and experience. I think you make a good point about which fields are school fields and which fields are town fields. I mean, Connor Field is not a school field, right, John?
Correct.
That's correct.
And up at the high school, the fields adjacent to the parking lot are, correct me, those school fields or town fields? I forget.
The track field and most of the Farm Road field, the one closest to Farm Road Field, are actually in Waveney Park.
So they're town fields.
Yes.
Which I think is appropriate. Yeah. But Kevin, what question are you suggesting that we should change the current designation of the fields from town to school or school to town?
Well, again, I think the subject is blurry. When I looked at the reports that I saw, and especially when we talk about making disclosure on town websites as to which fields are which, because if it's not clear to me, it's not going to be clear unless we make the disclosure very clear on the website as right. to.
So I would just say that 12 years ago, when this was reviewed at the time, again, the high school fields, again, whether you call them town fields or school fields, that body, when again it was approved by the town council, had said we want to apply the same law that applies to the school fields for SACs, all the elementary programs, except schools, to the high school as well. And the reason being, from my reading of the recommendation, was that the same folks who, whether they're playing on SACs fields, are also playing on the high school fields. And so, let's make sure that we're treating all of our children, whether they're in 8th grade or 9th grade, the same. So that was the sort of the rationale, if you will. Not required, by the way. The state only requires pesticide use prevention on school athletic fields up to 8th grade. But again, it was the committee 12 years ago who said let's move that and to include the high school fields as well. So,
yeah, Kathy, my point is that the facts changed.
A big part.
The facts changed. If you call them the high school fields, the high school players don't play on those fields. They play on the turf fields.
Right.
So who plays on the fields?
The young kids. That's ironically, if you want to go there, you really have to look at your policy about Waveney Park versus and Irwin Park fields. So again, I think this subject is one best left with Tiger and John to understand what our overall policy is with respect to pesticides and make the right decisions. I don't, having anybody, whether it's us or the town council subcommittee or Parks and Rec, we can get into the weeds on this subject if you want to. I think we're going to come up with a long process to try to do what John and Tiger do intuitively as experts.
I'm sure there was no pun intended in terms of getting into the weeds, but I will say that, John, I think it's simple, right? What are the high school fields? Name them for me, if you'd be so kind.
Well, what we classify as the high school fields are the ones that are adjacent to the high school. You know, technically they're part of Waveney Park.
Right, I got that. Who uses them?
Well, Farm Road is mainly used by soccer, younger kids soccer.
Okay.
The track field switches back and forth. It's field hockey, soccer, and whatever we need to fit in there per se.
Right. So school age kids up to 8th grade. I mean, again, thinking back to where they were 12 years ago, recognizing the usage of those fields, call them town, call them school, whatever you want to call them. It was that interpretation of the usage of those fields and whether or not we want to abide by the state law that prevents pesticide usage on fields that where kids are using that are, again, part of the school.
Catherine, that's my point, though. You look at where the young kids use the fields, they're using them over in the Waveney Park fields and Irwin Park. And so
I agree. That's why we're having this conversation. Absolutely. And so,
actually, what happened way back then is part of the state law was the Board of Ed has to send out a letter to all parents, and that letter had to state what they did. The Board of Ed sent their letter out before the determination was made that said they were not going to be applying any pesticides, including the high school.
Right.
Once that letter went out, that's when it was decided to not apply pesticides to Farm Road and the track, so that they wouldn't have to send out a different letter just stating the fact that they were going to.
So if you were to change that, John, are you suggesting then the Board of Ed would also have to send out another letter saying that it would be a change if that was perhaps your recommendation?
Well, the Board of Ed is supposed to send out a letter every fall. It can be part of other letters and all kinds of information. It can be email, etc., to all the parents to talk about the IPM programs they have in place and notification if people want to get on the notification registry, that type of stuff. They should be doing that on a yearly basis. That does not fall under my license. That falls under Board of Ed.
Okay. Okay. So again, if that's a decision or recommendation that you would make, and I agree with you, Kevin, we have the experts and they're looking right at us at the Zoom and you know, I think, but at least an annual update. Again, it doesn't have to necessarily be a committee, or this is the committee, if you will, with a report back from John and Tiger in terms of the athletic fields, be them school or town fields, in terms of safety. I mean, that's what we're all about here. We're not talking about pesticides or grubs or anything. We're talking about school safety and kid safety. And so if you know, with your permission, Kevin, I think just having John and Tiger report back, we don't stay on top of all the changes that might happen at the state level. So they do. And I would hope that they could give us an update once a year in terms of both the quality, the safety of our fields and where pesticides usage is applied and where it's not.
Actually, I would like to have Tiger and John write a report and come back to us once a year.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to two more quick, and I'll do it quickly here. There's the consideration of budget. We're just in front of budget season here, and I do want to point out just a slight difference on the, I think the estimation in terms of what the additional cost would be for overseeding. Slightly different from the Park and Rec. It's actually, if I've got these numbers right, and I got them from John, but it looks like it's about $25,000 if we were to implement an overseeding in terms of improving the quality of sacks, and by the way, not just sacks, but any of the fields that you know, if there's any sort of concern about the safety of the fields, any opportunity that we can do to improve that safety. I will take some concern again, John, I don't know if this is a draft of your memo or not, or if this is the final, but references to increased risk of traumatic brain injury, and that the legislature approved laws based on emotion and not science. The fact that we have reduced our pesticide usage by 4 times in the last 12 years suggests that that is a scientific decision on our part too, and the quality of the use of pesticides has actually improved. So I would think that a combination of somebody who you might view as overly emotional versus science. I think the science has actually worked in our favor and helped us to reduce the amount of pesticide use in our fields, and I'm grateful for that. The science also says, on a big stamp on the barrel of the pesticide use, keep away from children. And of course, that's if we're on a highly concentrated use. And so I think the science stands behind what the state has said in terms of their rulings. And so I want to just make sure that we're considering all sides and not classifying people.
Kathleen, could I stop you there? Because I've been unclear when we talk about safety, et cetera, whether we're talking about environmental risk or we're talking about risk to kids. Because on the one hand, I mean, if the Country Club in New Canaan and Woodway Country Club didn't apply pesticides, you wouldn't have a golfing surface.
That's correct. And people are aware of that. Anybody playing golf, myself included, and having children play golf, my kids included, we're aware of that. And so, but I think that's why I get back to the full disclosure on the use of pesticides.
No. Again, there's 2 different issues. One is the environmental risk.
Yep.
About pesticides flowing into the streams and stuff, which you have the 5-mile river running through Country Club in New Canaan. Then you have the other issue about risk to kids. Now, risk to kids is really a very limited issue, and the science of making sure that but you have kids running, playing on grass. That my point is, I think we need to be clear as to what risk we're talking about. Are we concerned about the risk to the environment in general? Because as Nick said earlier, I'm not sure one pesticide application a year to the fields that we expect to be performance grade is the right number. Or are we concerned about risk to kids with 2 applications versus 1? So again, this is getting into the science in terms of what the right answer is for what we're trying to accomplish. And I don't purport to know the answer. I'm not going to become an expert in this field, but I do think somehow we got ourselves convinced that we're complying with state law on Board of Education fields. And somehow that means something either in terms of environmental risk in general or safety of kids.
Yeah, so environmental risk applies to both safety and impact in terms of our groundwater, in terms of our entire property and streams and so forth. So environmental risk is a broad risk, and it's about health and safety, and it's about impact on our properties and streams, et cetera. So it's a broad statement, and I just want to make sure that we're understanding all sides in terms of whether it's health and safety, whether it's emotional, whether it's science. It's a risk, and we acknowledge that it's a risk, and we're going to do something about it. And we have done a lot about it. And I think that's what really is just sort of understanding what we do, what we don't do, and making that it's a judgment call in terms of how people want their kids to play on fields and so forth. Whether you put pesticides on your own lawn at your home, that's your call. So I think I just want to make it sure that any document that's coming from our town in terms of the expression of risks and so forth, we're careful that it's well balanced. And I'm a little concerned that if we're saying that anybody who's worried about pesticides, they're based on emotion, and anybody who's not, they're based on science. I want to just say that it's everything, and it's a broad topic of environmental law, environmental science. And so I'm just going to put it out there. I just want to make sure that it's not all one-sided.
That comment that I made came from one of the legislatures that was on the committee when they were going through the pesticide law process. I testified in Hartford, and after the meeting, I was talking to the person, and he said, you know, this decision is based on emotion, not truly science. And UConn has done a study that was published by the American Society of Horticultural Science. And part of their comments was, and I'm paraphrasing here, is we've probably gone too far. We're by eliminating pesticides, any application on school grounds, our conditions are suffering. And
So what are we gonna do about it? That's the important thing. We can't change the law. We can't, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But what we're gonna do about it, I would also just.
Well, actually, Kathy, I don't know. You can't change the law. People change laws all the time up in Hartford. But
go right ahead, go for it. That's terrific. I think you go for it, but I do think that again, if just a town document, just want to be careful in terms of it's once the weeds establish themselves, it's been proven that surface hardness increases the risk of traumatic brain injury. Someone who has gone through, suffered traumatic brain injury, I know something about that. And I would say that, you know, again, let's be careful about how you're in sort of trying to protect the fact that we use pesticides. And by the way, I'm not against the use of pesticides in terms of where it's used. We're making, you know, we're sort of trying to discredit either the state law or how the school athletic fields are. No, let's do something about making them better. It's simply that. It's not let's try to say, well, this risk is worse than that risk. Let's just forget all that. Let's just do what makes it the quality of our fields subject to the restrictions that we're under as best as we can make them. And so that's all. I'm just cautioning that don't want to be too one-sided.
That sounds great.
Now I understand your point of view, Kathleen. I didn't get that sense from reading it myself. So
okay, it's referenced both in John's draft and repeated in the Park and Recs memo, again based on John's. And I just think that it puts us at risk, frankly, to make those kinds of statements that anybody who sends their kids to fields on at Saks playing runs the risk of having traumatic brain injury. I don't think that's what the message we want to share.
With that said,
there's really two questions here too. You know, no one's questioning that we're going to comply with the state Connecticut law on school fields. The other issue though is what do we do on non-school fields? And I think there's a legitimate argument. I think Nick was alluding to earlier. If we're limiting ourselves to one application a year because we think that's the right policy, I don't know that John and Tiger have told us what they think the right policy is. Maybe 2 applications a year is the right answer for New Canada.
I look forward to their recommendations,
yeah.
Right? But I think they said one. I've spent a lot of time talking with John and Tiger about that. One works well, and I think that's appropriate. The question is on the this is where we're getting the lower grades on the athletic fields for the schools. Again, I don't know if this Tom Irwin report is complete, but that's where I want to see what are we going to do in terms of improving the safety here. This revealed something, this whole analysis revealed something that, you know, wasn't the observation, was where the pesticides are used here, pesticides are not used here. This brought out yet something in addition to that observation, is that the quality and the safety as brought out by John's memo and repeated in the Parks and Rec, is that the safety is maybe a broader concern on the fields where pesticides are not used. And if so, the question is, what do we plan to do about that?
That's a good point.
On that score, I would say that that's a value judgment in terms of budget that I think the Board of Finance has to make a determination. So I think this is an appropriate subject for the Board of Finance when they do their parks and
that's the third item, is that consider the budget impact. And so that needs to be evaluated. I know that John and Tiger spoke to Tiger about this the other day, and you know, that's being considered if in fact you do want to improve the quality of Saks and other school fields, what is it that you plan to do and what's the cost? What's the budget impact? So that's number 3. I think we've touched on that. Unless anybody else wants to add anything, but in terms of the budget impact, that's before us. And I look forward to hearing from John and Tiger in terms of what that impact is if we want to upgrade the quality of our school fields, including Saks.
John, you want to add anything to that? Sorry, Kathleen. John, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, you will see in the next budget request some money to actually add 2 more seatings to both Saks and the high school fields.
Right.
You know, we presently have been doing 2 seatings a year, and more seed is one of the best things we can do to fight off bare spots, compete with the weeds, etc.
Right. Okay.
That'll drive us over our budget guidance, but we are putting it in regardless.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Lastly, and that again, that the health and safety of our community has always been, forever will be paramount. So, and we do value the input of our constituents, of the town bodies, the experts who are very familiar with this. Again, it's really all about health and safety. It's less about necessarily pesticide usage, which is been allowed on certain fields and not allowed on others. And it's just that disclosure, that knowledge, sharing that information. And again, you know, there will be new health studies. There has been new legislation over the last 12 years. And I think that update and that communication, and we welcome it from as many people as want to share, and many have shared with me. So I appreciate that. And I just want to suggest that, again, ongoing review and report back from Kevin, your team, I think is greatly appreciated. So thank you for this time.
I would ask John and Tiger, do we get any, how do you approach the input of outside medical experts or health experts, John?
When we're looking at any of our programs, you know, we take input from anybody, really. In fairness, have I received any from outside medical experts? No. You know what I mean? I haven't received the input. Part of that would be, you know, what's in the news is not necessarily the same thing that we're talking about. We've adapted our IPM program, and we're looking at it all the time, but we've adapted it over the years to go with better and safer pesticides.
Yay.
So, but with that said, you know, if there's somebody, you know, we rely a lot on the University of Connecticut and other universities that are always actively studying athletic field maintenance. It's gone from, you know, 30 years ago, athletic field maintenance was a non-profession. You went out and you mowed the grass before the event. You know, it's hiring the experts now, people with the degrees, is more commonplace. It's a science-based approach. It's not just, oh, that guy's a good old boy and he should be running the parks department, the athletic fields, that type of thing.
John, when you said better pesticides, is that from an environmental point of view or from a safety of users point of view?
And a lot of different points of view. Better pesticides, meaning that you're using less quantities of active ingredients, targeting the pest exactly, instead of, a lot of them used to be broad spectrum pesticides. They treat a whole bunch of different things. Timing, which is tremendous. The product we use for grub control, it's such a minute amount because it gets actually inside the plant. And when the grubs are small, they eat it. They need very little to kill them. Where other products that were commonly used 20 years ago, you'd be putting such a high rate down of very poisonous stuff that would be the problem. So, you know, it takes a long time for a pesticide to be licensed in the state of Connecticut, but really in the country. But with that, there's always new products being developed and coming out. You know, again, the grub control, I think that's only been out like 7 years. It could be more. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure. We watched it for a while to see if it would work. It's very environmentally, and, you know, environment being people and the environment per se, it's very safe for both.
Nick, you have anything further?
Nothing further.
I would just like to conclude by saying, we are very fortunate in this town to have the kind of quality staff that we have across the board. And I want to thank John and Tiger for the tremendous work they do on not only maintaining fields, but everything. And so when we have a topic like this, if, again, boards and commissions can try to oversee something that we're not the experts in. But fortunately, we have experts that are really doing the job for us. So I really appreciate that.
I want to add my appreciation to both John and Tiger, who were kind enough to work with me. Much of the memo that you see before you from September 22nd is directly from them, so and others. And so I want to express my appreciation to both of them for the work that they do and for the collaborative engagement on this particular topic. So appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think that concludes our discussion of pesticides, and I would move on to our selectmen comments. I would make a few comments. First of all, on the COVID front, obviously, with last night's report, we're continuing to see the effects of Thanksgiving gatherings, and we're approaching Christmas season, where we're going to see another wave of Christmas gatherings and travel, which is Governor Lamont's comments yesterday at his press conference, I think, are very, very much on target. That we have the ability to control what's going to happen, whether we're going to keep our stores open and our schools open, or whether we're going to close down like many other states and many countries. I'm amazed that Germany totally shut down. We'd like to avoid another shutdown, but it's going to be wholly dependent on whether people are responsible and don't have Christmas gatherings that are going to increase the January spike that's probably coming in any event because of our neighboring states. We continue to do relatively well. I won't say very well, but we do relatively well compared to the rest of the state and our neighboring states. But people have to continue to take this very seriously and try to avoid the kind of conduct that will continue community spread. Thank heaven we have a vaccine that's beginning to be distributed, and that will be the game changer over the next few months. There's been a lot of chatter about animal shelter, and I visited the animal shelter last week, and I think Nick, from your point of view, the people don't realize that the police commission does not report to me, and the animal control officer reports to the police chief. And I think if there's issues that we want to raise here, people should raise them with the police commission. Personally, having observed it, and Tucker went over yesterday, I think the animal shelter is very humane, and the puppies are being well taken care of by our CERT volunteers. So, and actually, I just read in the paper today over in Fairfield, the animal control officer or the police euthanized a family dog, thinking it was a coyote. And so I think, again, gets to the issue of Allison is on here. We have terrific resources, and Allison Hom as our what's your title actually, Allison? Animal control officer?
Yes.
So Allison and John are on here, I think, for this reason. But if you want to have any further discussion about it, but I think I want to assure everybody that the current animal shelter is humane and warm and an appropriate place to store stray animals, usually for less than 24 hours. But we will, there's been talk about doing something on a regional basis. The trouble with regional things is our police officers want to be able to stay in town and immediately put a stray animal in custody, so that we can then decide. Usually the family shows up and is returned to the family. So, and then finally, as you know, we unfortunately have had Bowtie Cinema to decide that they don't want to operate in New Canaan anymore. The movie business is becoming very troublesome for movie operators, and so they're going to terminate the lease under a termination agreement by the end of the month, and we're going to begin a process for trying to decide what to do with the Playhouse. We've had a number of people contact us already. I think there's a lot of sentiment. We'd like to continue having a movie theater in town, but it's an opportunity to rethink the whole thing. Before, when we thought about this, we couldn't do anything because Bowtie had successive 5-year renewals on their contract, on their lease. And so we will begin that process, and we're beginning to consolidate the budgets of the departments. And I think we're probably going to be not a little north of where the Board of Finance would like to see us, but I think the COVID experience makes the budget process rather perplexing this year, both for the school department and for the town. But fortunately, our real estate market is helping out a lot, and overall, we're in good shape financially. And so I think that's my comments. Kathleen and Nick, would you like to?
Yeah, on the animal control facility, Kevin, yeah, it's humane, but I think it could be better. I think you and I talked about this in caucus, and I think, there are various options here. Maintain status quo, upgrade the current facility, move the current facility, or outsource. I think those are the options going forward. And I agree with you. Look, this is, Allison works for Leon, our police chief, and the police commission, I think, has jurisdiction over this. But, I've been inundated, and I use that word recognizing that I've been doing this job for 10 years, by folks directly and indirectly saying, like, what can we do to help? So one of the suggestions that I would have is perhaps giving folks the opportunity to contribute to a special projects fund dedicated to the animal control facility, whether we use that money to upgrade the current facility, to do something different, to relocate, or to outsource to private providers. So I would just throw that out there because, Kevin, as I told you, last week, people are saying, look, I want to contribute, hard dollars to make this a better facility. So I think we should provide our citizens, our constituents, the opportunity to do that. And we have special project funds for ice rinks. We have special project funds for pretty much any, Waveney. I think, Steve's got 3 or 4 different special projects funds. And I think maybe if we did something dedicated for the betterment of the animal control facility, that would provide an opportunity for our great citizens to contribute.
So I would encourage everyone to, there's a police commission meeting tomorrow night. They have jurisdiction. I don't have any control over what the police commission does. And I would encourage people to go and make based upon my conversation with Linda yesterday, it is up to the Board of Selectmen to establish special project funds. Well, I don't.
Not the police commission.
Actually, let me comment on the ice skating rink, because we have a tradition of people in town coming forward and wanting to volunteer, to donate money and create special project funds. So just like with the ice skating rink, which is a totally volunteer effort,
right?
That anybody who wants to begin a process to have a public-private partnership, probably on town land, but the town always can at least provide us the land to do something. I'm not adverse at all to having a dog, animal shelter special project. It's just that it has to come from the citizens up and not from the town, because the current facility satisfies the need. I have the state comes in every year and examines our animal shelter, and we've passed every year. And as Allison would say, that you're not allowed to run a undergrade animal shelter as a town. So the other thing is,
I compare this to the Saxfields are getting a D. We need to do better. I think we need to do better with the animal control facility. It's simple. We're New Canaan. We can do better.
There's also been a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk on the Advertiser Coffee last Friday that the location for a ice skating rink which would be a temporary thing every year, would be put up and taken down like is done in Westport and other towns. I'm sympathetic to the neighbors of Kiwanis Park. I think that there are probably better locations that would meet the needs, and but we will take a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission on the subject, and ultimately, though, it's going to be our decision as to what to approve with respect to a location for the ice skating rink. And I think neighbors' concerns are always a concern when you have lights in winter months, and I think we will be very sensitive to that.
Kevin, it's my understanding, based upon my conversations with Tom O'Day, that the folks pushing the rink are going to not try and do something this season, this winter season, and that it's going to be pushed off to next year. You may have more current information. But
Tom was in my office yesterday, so I'm very current on where they're going. And I think, I just think, the concern was, that something's going to be railroaded through. And again, this body's going to decide where the rink will go based upon any recommendation for Parks and Rec. But I don't think anybody should be concerned about something being railroaded. Yeah.
Look, I'm a huge proponent of the ice rink. As to where it goes, I defer to the Parks and Rec and their recommendation, and we'll see. But my understanding is that this is really going to be something for next year. So
thank you. I would say on the ice rink, I agree. I'll defer to when it comes before this board, but I'm glad it's not being rushed through without understanding the pluses and minuses and so forth. So thank you for doing that. I'm certainly in support of a facility like that. And then regarding the animal shelter, and Tiger was kind enough to show me that facility actually before the most recent usage of the facility, and agreed. If it's not broke, why fix it? But I'm always of the thing of, if it's not broke, it might not be broke, but we could always do better. So if that results in a community effort, I applaud that and would support that. So more to come. I'll just end with just to make sure we understand on the follow-up on this discussion about the quality of our athletic fields. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to hear a report back from Tiger and John in terms of disclosure or comments on a website or other facilities in which that's communicated, number one. Number two, we're going to be seeing a budget perhaps proposal about how to improve the quality of our fields, specifically SACs. Number three, we're going to hear, hopefully get an updated report from Tom Irwin that will include the same kind of analysis that they did for Connor. And those are the three and then also on an annual basis or what have you, Tiger and John would come back to this body just for an update. And if that's the understanding, Kevin, I support that and look forward to that report back.
And you just reminded me too that, as we go into budget season is a time to make choices. We're in a discussion with the YMCA about a public-private partnership with respect to Kiwanis Park in the summertime. I hope we can come to some resolution that we'd bring to the budget process in January. And I think that's about all that I can think of that's topical. We have a snowstorm coming, Tiger and John. It's going to be 8 to 12 inches. Actually, John, what's our latest? Is John still on?
I might have dropped off. Yeah, we're upwards of a foot.
Upwards of a foot, which will shut down outdoor dining for at least a couple of days. If not, I'm so glad we kept the outdoor dining going through at least mid-December. Sunday was a gorgeous day, and hopefully we may have some further gorgeous days through the December and January period until we get to that February 9th end of the second extension of the emergency. And hopefully, again, I would caution people, only we can control this virus locally, and that means wearing masks and not being careless, not letting down our guard to have events that are spreaders. I was amazed to read in this morning's paper that in Belgium, they brought in a Santa Claus to a nursing home and had 75 positive cases from the Santa Claus. So let's not let our guard down and be forced to shut down in January. With that, I would call for a motion to adjourn and wish everyone a happy holiday. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Kathleen?
I'll make a motion and also wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, your whole holidays. And I look forward to seeing everybody again in our next meeting in January. So thank you all.
I'll second the motion and also say happy holidays and stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Happy holidays.